Hi, today we're going to work on a watercolor of two koi fish in a pond. And the first thing we're going to do is draw some fish on our paper. So these are the shapes that I'm going for, but I'm going to go ahead and try to show you how to do it on the paper. So our first fish is going to just be kind of like a big, almost like a teardrop that comes down. And then I have a little skinny part, and then I'm going to make a V for this tail and kind of give it a triangular feel. And then for our two little fins, I'm just going to come out and do this action. And they're kind of wonky, but that's okay. And then for fish number 2, I'm going to do a big fat one that kind of curves around sideways. Because I want this fish to look, so it's kind of like a comma or an apostrophe. And then I want this fish to have like a floofing out tail. So I'm going to do that for it. And then we'll give this one some little sideways fins as well. So what I want to do is come in and like erase all the little lines. So it's okay to put them there, but I want to get rid of them before I start painting, so that my fish is just one continuous line. All right, so now, and try not to wipe it too much with your hands. You don't want to get a lot of like your hand oil on there. All right, so now I'm going to begin the painting part. But what I want to do is make sure that I get a lot of water down. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I can just put water anywhere I want on this paper. But I want to go around the contours of this fish really closely. Because what we'll do is we'll paint the background of water first. And then we'll get that good and dry. And then we'll come in and paint this fish. And it's going to give us a like a really cool water effect. So I'm just going to put some water around this fish, and I'm just making, like, the fish is the boundary. The fish is where we put no water. So I'm just going very carefully around the edges of my fish still. And you know what? If this is too hard for you to see, grab a little bit of a light color and you can put a light color in there. Just don't put a lot of paint on the paper at this point. Just keep it really nice and light, but that can help you figure out where you've put water and where you haven't. But we want to keep it very, very wet for now. Just get right up to those boundaries at the edge of your little fishy. And we can go one at a time on the fish. And try not to use a lot of friction on your paper. You're just applying the water. You're not trying to scrape the paper or embed the paint into the paper. You're just putting some water down. So now I'm going to get some different blues and greens. And I'm just going to go in and add it. So I want it to do this fun little stuff here. I don't want it to be a uniform application of paint. I want it to be kind of weird and flowy. Alright, so this is looking really beautiful. Exactly what I am after. So I just don't want any of these edges to be too hard. I want them to be flowy and dreamy. So I'm going to come outline this other fish in water. And remember, you can grab a little bit of paint if it's difficult to see where your water is. Because remember, we do want some light to show through. And the way we get light to show through with watercolor is to just leave some white paper showing through. So that's what we're going to do here. So you want to leave it translucent and be sure that you're using a lot of water. That is what's going to give us this flowy, awesome water success. You just don't need a lot of paint right now. You just need enough paint to tint this water and just show you where you've gotten it down on the paper. We can always add more paint. So I'm just kind of pulling it down all around this fish. I don't really want this line. That's why I hesitate to put a lot of pigment down on the paper. So I just want my paper to be nice and wet. And this very light paint will help us know where we've got water. So I'm kind of just working my best to gently cover this paper with water. And I can put water where I've already been, that's fine. So for this background, we want to do what we call wet on wet painting. So we want to have water down already when we go to put our pigment on. And that's going to help it give us that super flowy awesomeness that we come to appreciate when we decide that we're going to fall in love with watercolor. Alright, so now that it's kind of dark, you can really take any of these blues or purples, any blue, purple, green that you like, that you have, and just kind of add it by dotting. And your edges can be darker if you want them to, or they just really don't have to be. This can be in all over, however you feel like making it situation. So you're just adding pigment to your heart's desire, however you want pigment added. And I like to really just add it with the tip of my brush so that it does its fun little watercolor thing where it travels the way it wants. And I'm not really having to tell it to do a lot of stuff. So you want to watch around the borders of your fish that you keep this wet while you're working with that part so that you don't get these areas that aren't painted. So I just want to keep those borders nice and wet while I'm working my paint in. So you can go back and keep putting water, but just get this background really the way that you want it. And I want mine to be a lot darker. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put some really concentrated pigment here. And I can see that that's dried, so that's not what I want at all. So I'm going to put a little more water over it. I'm just going to roll water right over it. And I'm going to continue to kind of blend it just with the tip of this brush. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just really keeping it nice and wet when I go in with details, because that's what's going to allow all of this cool blending. All right. See what happens down here. Ooh, that's awesome action. I love it. So really just let your creative process take you here. Play with that paint, let it move around, see what happens for you. And you can go into blues, greens, purples, whatever color your water is taking you to. And you can see, since we didn't paint the fish, that water is traveling right around it. And that is exactly what I want. So just try to keep your water off the body of your fish. I want that fish to stay not painted. So if you have some water that's traveling and you feel like it's gonna go over the boundary of your fish, try and coerce it to go the other way. So I could tell this was getting kind of dry over here, so I have added some more water. I can see this right here is pretty dry, so I'm going to put some water down and I'm just going to tap. And that is going to pull that paint and make kind of this interesting shape in it, which is really lovely. And you may see that your paper is bowing up like mine is. That's all right. To just throw down that dot. That looks so cool. And make sure that your paint is nice and translucent here. We still kind of want to be able to see the white and the grain of that paper through what we're doing. And just coming down and adding on top of where your paint may have already dried. Adding some little pieces is going to give this really interesting look as it dries. So I've got this part here is still pretty light, so I'm going to put a little more water in it because I want to bring some color in. And you can see I'm drying here a little bit, so if you want that to not be dots, you've got to bring more water in and kind of invite it to be blendy. Just to find those little edges. I am loving this color right now. And it's just making my heart sing. So I'm going to add quite a bit of it because I want more of it. You can tell this corner up here is getting a little dry, but I can pull from all this water. This is pooling right there. And I'm probably going to have a little security breach there, but that's all right. Just going to tamp it down again just to let it know who's boss. All right. And we can always vacuum, so here's a good trick. Get your brush dried, and then you can kind of vacuum up some of that water. Because that's kind of a lot of water right there. And you can do this with just one color. You don't have to use a lot of colors, but I always like using the colors. So this is still wet, so I'm just going to come in and put some little dots because they're going to travel all around and just make it kind of interesting for us there. What else? I don't like what's going on there, so I'm going to just move it around, and I'm just going to tap a little water here because that'll give us an interesting effect. Whoops, I got a little water on my fish. Hopefully we can recover from that. We'll see. Alright, so this is feeling really peaceful. Very, very much like it. Just kind of continue with your background however you think your water looks. Just add some dark where you want some dark. Let it be light where you want it to be light. And I am going to roll some of this water off because there's a lot of water right through here. And it's just collecting, and I think it's a little too much for this piece. Also in the corner here. Sometimes to get this pigment to do what we want it to do, we have to take off some of what we've already put on, and that is all right. So you can see this is kind of starting to dry really in an interesting way. So I think I'm going to go ahead and fan it, kind of dry it off now. Just doing some last minute little rolly things. So I think I'm about ready to dry. All right, let me get a little bit of this water off. So I think I'm about ready to dry. So you can take another piece of paper and you can dry. You can use a hair dryer. You can use, I have a little embossing gun that I use sometimes. All right, so I'm gonna dry and I'll be back. What you wanna make sure when you're drying, you don't have to worry about this area out here. Just make sure that all around your fish are dry, because as we work on that fish, we need that to be really, really dry. All right, so I got mine good and dry around the edges of my fish. So now I'm gonna start painting some detail onto my koi. So I'm gonna use this red-orange color, and you can use red, you can use orange, you can throw some black in there, whatever color you think your fish are. So I want to leave these fish, I want to leave some white spots. So I'm just going to kind of put some orange in here. I think I might use the different oranges. I think I might use orange and also some of this red orange. Other one. So I'm kind of putting down an initial layer of color. It gets kind of funky over here in the little pokey part of the fish, but I'm trying to leave some white because I do want my fish to have some white on it. So I'm going for like this oranges and reds. You can really make your koi pattern however it looks like it would be good in your mind. This is a very inexact science of what these koi patterns are like. It's almost like a calico cat. Ah. And I kind of want to put a little black in here, but I am just not sure if it's going to end well, but we'll see. I will volunteer as tribute. Try a little black. Just want to make sure it gets nice and watered down, I guess, if you're going to put some black in there. Make sure it just kind of blends nicely. There's my koi. I'm not 100% sure I'm in love with them at this time, but I'm going to roll off a little bit of paint and see what happens. I think I like this a little bit better, where I'm removing some of the pigment that I put down, especially that black. That really takes over the other colors, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. So there's my fish. They're just kind of floating along. Something about this fin I don't love. Let's see if I can shape it up a little better. There we go. So now I'm going to go in with a kind of a clean brush, and I'm going to just do some very subtle little like ripples here. See what that does to my painting. So like anywhere my fish would be like throwing off these ripples, I'm just gonna throw some ripples in there. Just to give it some motion. So we'll see what that looks like when it gets dry. Should be kind of interesting. Alright, so now I'm going to dry it again really quickly. So I'm going to get it nice and dry where the fish are and where I've put these ripples, and then we'll be back. Alright, so we could stop here. Should we stop here? Maybe. I think I'm going to put one lily pad. So I'm going to go in, or maybe a couple, maybe 2 lily pads. But I'm going to go in, I think, with this green-blue color. And I'm just going to add right here, I'm going to add a big lily pad. So a lily pad kind of is a circle with some little pizza cutter shapes maybe cut out of it, kind of. So here's my lily pad, and I'll come back and put some green in it too, but I just want to get it working here. I feel like this piece needed a little bit of visual interest down here at the bottom. Just to kind of give some symmetry to these fish of mine. I feel like I need to give my paintbrush a haircut. It's kind of fraying at the end. So there's a little lily pad, and then maybe I'll put one up here in the corner as well, but it's going to be kind of a different size. Like it'll be, let's see, I think I'm going to put more paint in here too. Maybe give it some green. Make this, give it kind of a hunter green feel. So I'm going to add some of this regular old green to it. There we go. All right. So then over here, I'm going to add a lily pad too. But I want to give it like some of these little splits, like where how the lily pads aren't perfectly round. They have the little splits in them. So I don't know about you, if you're like me, I wasn't 100% in love with my fish before, but I'm starting to like them more now that I'm throwing some extra things up here in my environment. Giving them a little bit of perspective. Alright, then I'm going to add some green into that one too. And I'm just going to dot that green on there because I don't want it to be perfectly blended. I just want it to be sort of blended. Alright, so I think this is going to do it for me. I think that's enough. Unless we want to put like another lily pad, but I don't think we do. I think we're going to leave it. Alright, so now I'm going to take part of my dry paper towel, because I like speckles so much, and I'm going to cover my fish up. I'm going to also cover up this fish. So I sort of just tore a fish-shaped, maybe it's better this way, yeah. So that's sort of just like a fish-shaped piece. And then I'm going to throw some speckles into my water. So I know that my water has dried, so that's good. So now when I throw speckles, they're not going to blend in. They're just going to kind of go in the water. But they're also not going to get on my fish, which is precisely what I'm aiming for. I don't want these speckles on my fish. I just want them in the water. And you can skip this step. If you like the way yours is looking just really fluid, you don't have to add the speckles. But these are one of my favorite parts of painting because they're really messy. And I just feel like they give our water a little bit of depth. So I'm going to add some white ones. And then I'm going to add some, like some blue ones. But they might be smaller and a little more watery. Which blue do I want to add? I'll add this dark blue. But I'm going to come over here and kind of make sure it's the consistency that I want it. Yeah, I think that's good. Alright, so I want to get it good and watery before I come to speckle. So see? So there's some little speckles. And I want some more right here in this corner. My tape is lifting, and yours might be too, so don't worry about it. Alright, so let's see what our not speckled fish look like. Perfect. So this is my final painting, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm just going to dry these edges before I peel this tape. Alright, so I'm done drying, so I'm going to move, we never use salt, that's alright. I'm going to move my paint out of the way, and I'm ready to peel this tape off. My paper got very warpy today, but that is alright. Still, oh no! Huge security breach over here. I got a lot of paint. That's okay. Not gonna super worry about it. I think this really looks very pretty. Alright. So I'm just gonna have to deal with this action over here, but I am gonna go ahead and dab it away if I can for now. So we just had a little security breach, but be sure at the end that you go in and you sign it. And then you're done. Yay!